1FM 91.3, good times, greatest hits. Good morning to you. You're on the bright side. Just heard from Fleetwood Mac and Little Lies. And here is no lie because we have a very special guest joining us here in the studio this morning. And he is an award-winning space photographer, Marco Lorenzi. Recently has won so many awards, but this year he won second place in the Astronomy Photographer of the Year 2023 competition.
And might I add, it's an image that was taken right here on Singapore soil. Okay?
Yeah, it's a picture of Jupiter. You might have seen this article in the Straits Times. You've got to go click on the link, straitstimes.com. I've not seen Jupiter in such great detail before. Marco, welcome to the studio.
Hi everybody, and thank you for having me here this morning.
Tell us, how long have you been into space photography? What got you started in the first place?
Well, it's a very long story because I started as a child. I fall in love with astronomy. I was 10 years old, 9 years old, and like many kids, I used to be fascinated by all these spots in the sky. And back then, the sky was much darker than it is today. And one day, what happened is my buddy, my friend, another kid, a couple years older than me, was living upstairs. Called me and say, look, I have to show you something. And he got this tiny telescope. It was kind of a toy, if you want, but and he was aiming in the sky and said, look through that one. And there was a small cluster of stars, and I was really, what is that? And he told me, look, these are called the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. And it was actually an open cluster, and I was kind of love at first. I was blown away because for a kid, I was like, but are you telling me I can actually find a way through all of these incredible show up there? And from there, it was really, I got into that. I went with my small bicycle to the library and I started spending really a lot of time looking at books. There was no internet back then in the time. And I started pestering my parents with a telescope. I want something. And then Santa, that Christmas, arrived with a small telescope. And then from then I became, so it was more than 40 years ago. Almost.
Literally love at first sight when you saw a star.
Until you met your wife.
Yeah.
Then that was
Then I,
better say it out now.
I have my personal star now.
With a high amount of light pollution, and you mentioned this in just a bit, that back then in your childhood, it was darker then, right? So all the light pollution in Singapore, and we're kind of known for it. How do you enjoy your hobby? Because normally we can't even see stars at night. What is the best time to do stargazing in Singapore?
Actually, it is one of the biggest issues we have. Is not only in Singapore, because it's one of the difficulties we have in a modern time most of the developed world. Singapore in particular is suffering from light pollution. Also is a bit of inevitable. Is a scarce availability of land, so you have a very high population density.
High density,
so that is one of the inevitable consequences. Of course, something can be done better. I hope also there will be maybe more focus in the future to try to improve a little bit the situation. So yes, light pollution is impacting very much the sky visibility. However, Singapore surprisingly has quite a unique position for a specific branch of astronomy, which is a high resolution imaging. So Singapore is located on the equator, meaning that from here, from this island, because most of the solar system's objects, including the sun and the planets and the moon, they are moving around the sun on one plane. And this plane is called ecliptics.
Okay.
And because we are located on the equator, the ecliptic is extremely high in the sky. It's basically crossing above our heads.
Wow.
Meaning that from here, planets are always visible very, very high. If we go out these days, we see Jupiter, early in the morning for the moment, but you will see Jupiter that is crossing very, very high in the sky. It's very, very bright, very, very high. And this is helping a lot in getting a very good view, because the best things and what is really important is the air we are looking through. Every time we are looking at the stars,
Sure.
we are passing through the atmosphere. The air must be very, very quiet. So the fact the planets are very, very high is giving this better opportunity to have less air to pass through, and so is quieter. And then there are also other reasons. Singapore is an island, so all the air is arriving to Singapore is passing over the sea before arriving to Singapore, which is also improving the steadiness of this air.
Very interesting.
And last is a little bit more technical. Is Singapore also, because is between the tropics, is not affected by what is called what are called jet streams, and jet streams are these very high air currents in the atmosphere, about 10 to 15 kilometers of this big river of fast air moving as fast as 400 kilometers per hour.
Oh, wow.
Which are also steering the air in the atmosphere. So Singapore is outside of this effect, and this is really helping a lot the steadiness.
This kind of gives new meaning to location.
Location.
Yeah.
And you can tell how, through your photo of Jupiter taken from your home in Kembangan, that Singapore actually does have the right, elements for space photography. I never thought it was possible before, but now that you've actually clinched this award in the Astronomy Photographer competition, you're definitely challenging the perception of what can or cannot be done in this field right here in our backyard here in Singapore. We're chatting with Marco Lorenzi. If you haven't seen his award-winning photograph of Jupiter, you got to check it out. It's up there on the Straits Times, straitstimes.com. He's a multi-award-winning photographer. In fact, your photos have been featured in the NASA websites as well. We'll get more into that in just a bit. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/1FM 91.3. Good morning.
Hey everyone, our studio guest for today, Marco Lorenzi, who just clinched second place in the Astronomer Photography of the Year 2023 with his incredible picture of Jupiter. Please go and check it out at the Straits Times link. It is stunning, and I cannot believe that you took this picture right here in Singapore at Kembangan, my old hood. I was there before I got married. Yes. yes. I lived in Kembangan. And I was like, wow.
But you saw a different kind of star. You saw Gavin.
Yeah. What are the pros and cons of actually practicing or trying to practice this hobby specifically in Singapore?
Yeah, well, we were mentioning air pollution is one of the difficulties, and that is probably what is
the light pollution.
Light pollution, sorry, yes, light pollution is what is also keeping less people joining actually astronomy or be passionate of astronomy, because as I said, I fall in love because I saw a lot of stars. And now it's much more difficult than this one. Then we see also there are some advantages of being here. So there is still something can be done because planets are relatively bright, so it's still possible. Then probably one of the things is really challenging in Singapore is the weather. It's sometimes it's frustrating because you get out, you see, it's a clear sky tonight. I take my equipment, I start mounting it, and a few minutes later you have to rush inside because it starts raining or it's cloudy and it's opening up, and then you put away everything. And then the sky is opening up again. So let's say that's easily requires determination, really.
That's where the exercise comes in.
And the equipment is probably quite heavy, right? Your telescopes and all that.
Well, in fact,
can't get wet.
It can get wet, and rusted is another issue because it's very, very humid in Singapore. So when I bought at the beginning, before building my own equipment, the one I'm using now, I was using some commercial one, and I got a lot of rust on it. So the moment you live outside, the humidity is actually asking for a price. So that is.
I mean, this is just incredible. That just tells me how passionate you really are. You built your own equipment. I mean, I like what I do as a DJ. You will not see me building my own mic. I don't think that is possible. But
Yeah.
wow. And speaking of Singapore, I mean, do you indulge in your hobbies overseas? Like this hobby? Is there a place in the world that's the best place for you to do astronomy?
I do, in fact, and I'm in the many years in the past. Actually, I've been doing astronomy from backyard. So before moving here, I was back in Europe, in Italy. I'm Italian. So I used to go in the mountains around and taking my equipment, driving up to the mountains, coming back in the morning.
Wow.
And I even used to travel around. I've been to Namibia, I've been to Canary Island, I've been in Australia from back home. So I used to travel around with my telescope.
Okay, maybe share that with us on air. We're just about to jump back live.
Yes.
Yes.
Avril Lavigne and Skater Boy here on 1FM 91.3 Good Times Greatest Hits. He's not quite the skater boy, but he is a space photographer and an award-winning one as well. We're joined in the studio by Marco Lorenzi this morning on the Brightside, whose photo of Jupiter taken from his home in Kembangan has won second place at a very prestigious astronomy photography competition. His pictures have been featured on the NASA websites, my goodness. And you've won multiple awards before. And thank you so much, Marco, for sharing with us this passion that began as a child. Can you tell us about some myths and misunderstandings about astronomy that you want to clear the air about?
Of course, the first one is coming to my mind is there is a very big difference between astronomy and astrology. So even now I have people that, yes, when they hear I'm actually looking up at the stars and they're asking me, wow, it's fascinating, it's good. Look, I am a Virgo. What can you tell me about my... Oh, what have you ever seen the green people arriving with a UFO?
You should totally be like, well, as a Virgo, I can tell you that Virgos do not know the difference between astrology and astronomy. Okay?
So these are probably the most common misconcept, actually.
Sure.
That's hilarious.
So let's say, yes, I mean, astronomy and astrology are two different things. So one is more about the science of trying to understand about what is around us. The other one is more about the beliefs or the pseudoscience, which is more a remaining of our past beliefs in centuries ago. So it is nice. It is okay. Sometimes I also have a laugh at home because even my wife is checking up. What sign is it? What sign is that? So I laugh about that one. Of course, I'm okay with that. But there is a very, very big difference between the two things.
Wow. So offhand, I can imagine. Can you know exactly where the planets are, like right now?
Yes.
Wow. Like where is Jupiter in the whatever orbit or something like that? That's amazing knowledge to have, I suppose, if you're chasing the stars and the planets, right? What, in your opinion, is the best place to actually practice your hobby?
Well, if somebody can choose, of course, far away from light pollution, in the desert, that would be the best. In fact, I have one remote observatory I built with a couple of friends from Hong Kong, which is located in Chile, in Atacama Desert, and the location is absolutely outstanding. And it takes, of course, it's a complexity. It takes a bit of investment, but I can really get great pictures from that one because you can go as deep as your instrument actually allows you.
Oh, wow.
So that is absolutely the best one. Then, of course, at the end, what really matters is that you try to make the best out of what you have. So the fact I was able to take these great images in Singapore, which is surprisingly a very good location for high resolution, means that at the end of the day is also very much up to you how much determined you are in exploiting what you have. Right. I would never take images of faint galaxies from Singapore because, unfortunately, light pollution would block me to do this one. So from here, I just focus on something else. I know other fellow amateurs here, they're taking great images of the sun, which is actually also very, very good location for sun imaging, or some others are specializing in moon imaging. Or at the end, it's pretty much also up to you to do what actually surprises, what actually makes you feel happy. Because at the end, it's a hobby. Is something that really is quenching your thirst to get more, to know more.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much up to you. So at the end, too.
Wonderful. And for anyone, who's tuning in right now, they want to get into astronomy. What's the best way to start? With, I don't know, buying a telescope, where to begin?
Well, in fact, it's a very good point, because if you ask me, I would say do not buy a telescope first.
Oh, interesting.
That is one of the first suggestions actually I feel to give. Because there is a typical mistakes when you get excited, you see advertising, you see pictures, my picture, you say, it's good, I buy a telescope, and I see the same. Well, it doesn't actually really work this way. So the best and things you can do is to join other people, other amateurs, and to spend time together at the beginning.
Use their telescope.
Using their telescope, getting some advices, experience yourself without actually buying, because most of the telescopes actually you can get a cheaper one, because of course you're starting, you don't spend a lot of money. So toys, or I would say a little bit of junk also here and there. So my strong recommendation is join groups. There are several groups also here in Singapore, many passionate. There is a go to the science center. There is an observatory every Friday is open. So.
That's interesting you brought that up, because the telescope that you used to take this picture was something you built yourself. It's got a primary mirror with a diameter of 535 mm, which is bigger than the one at the Singapore Science Center.
Wow.
They only have a 400 mm reflector. Yours is way bigger.
Wow, flexing.
So we go to your house, lah.
Yeah, I think so. We don't go to Science Center. We go to Marco's house.
It will be a little bit complex, but why not? Why not?
We're friends now, Marco. All right,
You're welcome.
We're chatting with the award-winning photographer, space photographer Marco Lorenzi here in the studio. Join us on Facebook Live, facebook.com/1FM 91.3. Back with more of this amazing man in just a bit.
1FM 91.3.
I can mention it.
How?
Yeah. But one thing I actually believe is important to say is Singapore surprisingly has a community of amateurs. It's not super big, but I am in contact with some of them, and I recommend, as I said, don't buy your telescope, spend some time, go to the science center, at a planetarium, enjoy it. On Friday there is a possibility to use the instruments, or you can go, there is one group which is singastro.org, which is actually a website where you see many other amateurs.
Okay.
And they have initiatives. I believe the 4th of November there is a gathering in the East Coast where you can get for free. You can just go there and see,
nice.
and you can see, weather permitting, through the telescope. You can see Jupiter is the opposition of Jupiter, the 4th of November. So it's the best moment to see really Jupiter with your own eyes.
Wow.
And free of charge. So
It's funny because, as you're just recounting your story of your childhood, how you got into it, I don't think I've ever looked through a telescope to look at a planet or a star, you know? So I'm actually now curious to see what you would have seen as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, we have all these images these days on the internet, but to actually
that's right.
whole act of looking through a telescope and seeing it for yourself, I'm sure that's something quite amazing.
Did I hear you right? You said that on the 4th of November, when there's this gathering, you can actually see Jupiter with your own eyes.
Of
You
course.
don't need a telescope.
I'll bring his photo.
Really? Seriously?
No, you can see with your own eyes through the telescope.
through a telescope.
Because they
Ah.
have in fact, you can see Jupiter with your own eyes even this morning. I mean, if you
Yeah.
wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning and you go out, you will see a very bright star.
But they all kind of look the same.
in the sky.
He's gonna tisk you. He's gonna like...
It's going to be just a bright star.
Oh, it's a satellite. Actually, what's the difference between a satellite and a star or a planet?
Between the stars and the planets, there is a trick actually you can follow to identify planets. That when you're actually looking at the stars, they are sparkling.
Yeah.
They are moving. If you're looking at a planet, they are not sparkling at all. They are kind of firm, so you don't see them changing brightness.
So, but at night, there will be a light from it.
Oh yeah, they're extremely bright.
Oh.
Jupiter is one of the brightest stars you can see in the sky, and
That's
Venus
very
is by
interesting.
far the brightest star.
Right,
you
but
can
just
say.
no twinkling. And then
Star between brackets. of course.
satellite.
Satellites, actually, the human-made satellites. We
Yeah.
are talking in this case. They are usually kind of shooting stars. They're moving at a constant speed. You see often every time I go out, I see a satellite passing over.
Oh, wow.
And you see a kind of a star which is moving somewhere from one point to another point in the sky before disappearing. There is some can get very bright. You can see the space station, for example, from Earth. And
you
I have
can?
some. Oh yes, I have some friend of mine that took images, and you can
Wow.
even see the details of the space
Like the
station.
ladder.
And the
ladder,
astronaut like
the
waving
solar
back at you
panels.
and like, please.
Yeah, not that close, but quite close.
I think I know why my wishes didn't come true, because the shooting star I probably wished on was just a passing satellite.
Aha! Maybe we can go on air and clarify that. Like what to be
Yes,
looking out for when we
yes.
look up in the night sky here in Singapore. What are some of the things we can see?
I know. So we've got a question from our Facebook on our Facebook Live. Hannah has asked any photos for the Milky Way to be captured here in Singapore. Let's take that question on air.
Okay, in just a sec.
Up with Gimme All Your Lovin' here on the Brightside. Good morning to you.
We are chatting with Marco Lorenzi, an award-winning space photographer, joining us here in the 91.3 studio this morning. So glad, so honored to have you, because your photo of Jupiter taken from your home in Kembangan has clinched a very prestigious award in an international photography competition.
But we must point out that you actually won first place for the same competition. That was in, I think, 2014, you mentioned.
1911.
the
Sorry, 2011.
2011,
Yeah, and
yeah.
you've won numerous awards. Your pictures have been featured in NASA's website.
Wow.
Marco, walk us through this. I mean, for those of us who are not so in tune with what's happening in the world of space photography or even the stars, like what can we be looking at as we look up into the night sky here in Singapore? I mean, how do you tell what's a star, what's a planet, what's a satellite?
Well, good question. Actually, there is a trick which is helping you to determine if what you're looking at is a planet or if a star. So first, the major planets are pretty bright. In fact, if you wake up in the morning now, you will see that Jupiter is extremely high in the sky, but very, very bright. It's one of the brightest star between brackets, one of the brightest objects you can see. And early in the morning, like 5, 6, you will see a super bright object just in the east direction, which is Venus, which is in this moment one of the highest elevation you can get. So the main difference between stars and planets is that stars seems to sparkle, so they are actually changing brightness constantly, is like they are alive, and planets, they don't sparkle at all. They are kind of firm. So that is due to the apparent diameter of the planets. There is a scientific explanation, but that is a very easy trick to determine the difference.
Interesting.
And the satellite, when we are talking about satellite, I mean man-made artificial satellites. Usually they look kind of shooting stars moving in the skies. They're moving at a constant speed. They usually not that bright, but they can be also very bright. In the case, for example, of the space station, they can be extremely bright, and they're moving in the sky from one direction to another. So they are no UFO. So don't get too excited. They are man-made things, but they're also fascinating. And I know some friends actually specialize in taking images of artificial satellites. It's also possible.
Wow, there's a speciality in like people who specifically look out for this. That is really fascinating. I want to know, do you have a favorite photo? Or what is the most difficult photo you've taken so far?
Good point. I have many favorite photos because, of course, every time you get something or you take something is a constant way or struggle to improve yourself. So let's say the latest pictures you take, they always tends to be, the latest baby you make. And that's important. Let's say I have a few pictures I'm pretty much close to. Maybe one I'm most interested in is the Vela supernova remnant.
Wow.
Which is this a very particular object which is visible in the southern sky that is the leftover of a dying star. So
wow.
it's a star that died millions of years ago, and when these stars exploded, released a lot of material, and this material created these amazing constructions of gases.
Yeah, they look
and
like a celestial body, right?
bubbles.
Like
It's
this
very
clouds of
particular.
like,
Yes, of course. We don't
yeah.
see the motion because it's huge. And this is actually the pictures that got me winning the 2011 competition. So I'm very fond on these images for few reasons. Of course, it was rewarded, so it was I was very proud about the results. Was my first iPod of NASA. I got 16 since then, so I get many other chances after, but that was the first one. And I would say it was also one of the first time I used and an amateur used specific filters mixing and to get part of this nebula standing out. The special filter to look for oxygen, a special one looking for hydrogen. So it was a kind of a hybrid techniques that was not that popular at the time. Was of course known. I didn't
So you're
invent
pioneering
anything.
new methods.
But it was, I would say, of this object, one of the first images taken with narrowband, mixing narrowband, what is called, and broadband images.
Do you have a website somewhere people can go to look at all your beautiful
I
images?
do have where I put most of my pictures is www.glitteringlights.com.
Oh, that's
that's
beautiful.
beautiful, yeah.
Love that. And now that you've won this award, what is next for you? Is there a planet or image that you're really hoping to capture in great detail?
I will never, fully be satisfied with my result. It's always try to get better, to challenge, because actually the biggest challenge is to improve yourself. So that is the point. I have a list of a lot of objects, nebula, galaxies. But from Singapore, if I think I have on my to-do list, I have to image Vesta surface, which is one of the asteroids, one of the largest asteroids. It's something which is very few images, amateur images, I believe one or maybe or two in the world so far. Then I have tried to separate Pluto and Charon, which is the main satellites. I believe there is maybe one case or two cases so far in the world, and some others like the ring of Uranus or other things which are really borderline of what can be achieved. And of course, I want to try to that.
It sounds like you love a challenge.
Of course.
Marco, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on The Bright Side. We wish you all the best, and we would
you.
love to, keep in touch and follow your work. Once again, it's www.glitteringlights.com.
Yeah, I'm at the website. The images are beautiful. He even has this gallery of, he calls it down to earth.
Aw.
So he's
Yes.
taken images. I think you practice photography everywhere you go. Beautiful.
Well, I'm not really updated. Down to earth, actually.
Can you take our corporate headshots as well?
Go and check it out, everybody. Go and check it out.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you very much to everybody.
Can we roll that, please?
Wrap up with some questions here.
Yeah, sure.
Levy?
We do have this question coming in from Hannah, and I asked before, any photos for the Milky Way, any chance, I guess, for the Milky Way to be captured in Singapore?
Actually, I saw somebody here, that got some Milky Way images. Of course, taking some images. They go either on the East Coast or actually Labrador Park. Quite as far as possible from the lights, as much as Singapore allows you to go. It's challenging. It's not easy. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's a little bit challenging.
Right.
However, if you are determined, you can try. And of course, there is also the possibility to take and then processing a little bit, improving the contrast helps to get the Milky Way standing out a little bit more.
Hannah also asks, what is a good camera, for capturing all these that doesn't cost a bomb? Is that even possible? I thought it's more the telescope that captures the image. How does it work?
I started with actually just a camera and a tripod. So in fact, you can do already something with a camera and a tripod.
Okay.
I would say most of modern digital cameras. If you have particularly the single lens, the one a little bit more professional. Allows you already to take some decent images of the stars.
Okay.
You need a tripod. You can buy a tracker because, of course, to get better, you need to expose for longer time. Exposing longer times allow you to collect more light. So that is actually what helping you to standing
I
out.
learned that when I was in Norway, looking at the aurora borealis.
Yep.
Yeah, you take your iPhone and it doesn't come out great, and then you're looking at the slow exposure of the professionals. Are like, what? That's been in the sky the entire time.
Yes, it's
It's
true.
amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, collecting lights actually is extremely important, and it's the biggest advantage photography give on the live view. But because of the Earth is rotating, you need a device, something that is compensated, so it's helping you to track the Milky Way. Otherwise, instead of stars, you get lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And that is something actually you can even build by yourself. It's not complicated, and many websites help you. But yes, it's definitely possible with pretty much every decent single lens camera.
Well, it's good that photography and the equipment is more accessible, more affordable for everyone. So this might be a new hobby for you to, for you guys, our Brightsiders, to partake in. Thank you so much for all your questions as well. And thank you to Marco. Now, we want to share with everyone what we shared on air is Marco's website. It's stunning. I will show you. Here, look.
Gosh, that looks like the NASA website. I can't tell the difference. What is that at the bottom right there?
This one is the very cute gallery, down to earth. So he captures, I think you do photography just about everywhere you go.
I usually I say this is actually a place I was with my wife in.
Yes, I noticed her in the
I want
years ago,
to. I want to
yes.
take a picture with Marco later, but I'm afraid of like what he might say about our photography
He might
skills.
discuss. He might discuss. Yes.
So Joel, are you ready to take a photo with? No, I'm feeling a bit nervous about picture taking.
Check out the website. It is at glitteringlights.com. I love the name as well. Glitteringlights.com. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Marco. All the best.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me here.